Hey guys, it's Nichole Eaton with the Rock Your Soul book and podcast, where we talk about how to hack your mindset, grow your intuition, and live your best life. Hey guys, it's Nichole Eaton, author of the book Rock Your Soul, the Down-to-Earth Guide to Mastering Your Mind and Soul Therapist. I am so excited to be back. I took a little hiatus from podcasting. It has been a weird quarantine, so I know you guys will forgive me for that. But I'm very active on my Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/Rock Your Soul. Clarity is my group. I'm very active on my Facebook group. And yesterday I posted a little meme, and it says, you can't mess up anything that is meant for you. So stop being so scared of what will happen. Trust your intuition and let your heart and soul guide you on this journey. I promise you cannot mess anything up that is meant for you. Now, I got a lot of comments on that, okay? Because my push for that was that the more authentic you are, the more in a line you're living your life. But we get really afraid to speak our truth, and we get really afraid to allow things to exit our life because we're grippers. We're chronic grippers. And what I mean by that is we've become the type of society that grips onto anything that might work because we're so afraid that something won't come together. So, this whole episode is going to be about releasing resistance. And a lot of people look at resistance in association with manifestation. So, when we talk about resistance, we're talking about resisting what is and resisting what's coming. So, really, a better word for resistance is negative thinking. So, when we start to get into a negative thinking cycle where we're only thinking about what has happened in a negative way, and we're not thinking about what potential it's creating, because everything that enters or exits leaves room for potential. Everything that enters or exits your life leaves room for potential. I'm not saying that things can't be challenging or hard, but I'm saying that at some point there is some level of opportunity there for you to personally grow, for you to get something new and better, for you to whatever. I truly believe that we were made to have an amazing life. That is one of my mantras. I think sometimes we get stuck in the pity party of, maybe I wasn't made for an amazing life. Oh, maybe I wasn't. The universe doesn't have my back. And somebody posted on that meme that yesterday. I kind of felt like it was a faith or not having faith issue. And I think that faith helps because what faith does is reminds you of abundance. Faith reminds you that there are other possibilities. Faith reminds you that something better can come. And what we're really trying to move away from when we're in resistance is that rigidity of thinking in absolutes, thinking that if, I did not get hired for this job, that it was my only opportunity. My kids love to watch America's Got Talent, And last night we were catching up. One of the women, when they were doing the judge cuts, she says, "This is it for me. Like this is either going to make or break my career." Now, is that true? Do we know people that have gone on and succeeded even after being rejected from shows? Absolutely. But in her mind, her resistance was this one pathway is the only pathway. This one opportunity is the only opportunity. And what it starts to do is you start to connect this thing, this person, this place, this job, this house with fulfillment. And you start to connect it with things that define you. So if I don't get this one opportunity, and if I don't get through on America's Got Talent, and if I don't get that job, then what does that say about me? Now, if we go back to the beginning of Rock Your Soul, we know that our brains assign meaning to everything. Whether we're not sitting there with our label maker of a brain trying to say, okay, well, now what does that mean? It is almost an automatic process. Well, if I don't do that, then I'm going to fail. If I don't do that, I'm never going to be successful in my career. If this person doesn't love me, I'm going to be alone forever. This is the thinking in absolutes. This is the rigidity of thinking. And our I don't know. This time period is interesting because I've watched so much. I did a whole episode on judgment, but I was talking about this kind of this or that thinking. Like, if this happens, that has to be the case. And the reality is, we live in more gray area than black and white. We live in more potential than is visible to the eye. So your job as somebody who is releasing resistance, releasing negative thoughts, because if we think about resistance in a momentum way, what we're really saying is, I want to be able to enjoy the day for what it is. Most of the time when bad things happen, it's not impacting your day. We make it impact the day because we focus on it. We build momentum around the negative thought, and then we start to feel, because we know thoughts lead to feelings. So most of the days, if we have a big event coming up and we start worrying about something a month in advance, then what we're doing is we're blocking our joy. So when we release resistance, we actually gain access to present joy. Because in the present moment, I want you to think about all the shit that's been going on for you. So maybe you lost your job in quarantine, or maybe you have a sick relative, or maybe I know some people who are going through issues with an adoption. I know some people who are going through issues with their relationships, or whatever that thing is for you that's been heavy on your heart or mind. I want you to ask yourself in this moment, whatever room you're in, whatever part of your life you're in, whatever's going on for you today, if we just look at this very moment, are you okay? This moment's probably fine. You're probably not making any major choices in this moment. You're probably just trying to have your coffee and get the kids ready for school, or get them, off on their way. So in this very moment, are you in distress? Because our brain will trick us into believing that we need to constantly be in distress, but that's not true. Distress doesn't actually help our brain function better. Actually, I was reading Talking to Strangers by Malcolm Gladwell, and he was talking about how our brain begins to shut down. He was talking specifically about torture, which is kind of like negative thinking, and is its own weird, sick version of torture. And if you can kind of start to think of that, you would ask yourself, why am I torturing myself? But he was talking about torture, and he was talking about how they torture people who are, prisoners of war, to get information out of them. But what they found is that when you're in a state of torture, your brain actually disconnects and shuts down from the parts of your brain, other parts of your brain that contain memory and contain ability to process thinking in a better, more efficient way. So they've found that by using this torture technique, that they're not actually gaining access to information, because you're sort of the person who's undergoing the torture is losing access to information. So when we put ourselves in a constant state of stress or negative thinking, we lose our ability to solve problems. We lose our ability to think clearly. We lose our ability to, if you're really thinking a lot, you're probably losing access to your intuition. And it sounds counterproductive of, okay, so how do I gain access to my intuition? You just don't. You don't do anything. You don't work harder. You don't have to do anything specific. Your intuition is literally always there, but sometimes you need to shut up long enough to hear it. You need to go listen. I love listening to, it's 432 hertz, I believe, 432. Type in 432 HZ on YouTube, on iTunes, on Spotify. Any of that is a tone that resonates, a frequency in your brain to help it calm down. It's the tone of love. It's the frequency of love. So I listen to that in the mornings while I write, or while I, just hang out and have my coffee. And this is kind of resetting your brain for the day. So 432 HZ. And there's pretty much a binaural beat, and that's what they're called, binaural beats. They have frequency resonance within different parts of your brain to help elevate, to help remove negative thinking, to help with your energy. We lose the ability for processing possibility. We assign one possibility, that it's going to be worse or unbearable, or we won't be able to handle it. Have this negative thinking, which makes you feel bad throughout the day. It impacts negatively your relationships with your family, with your children, with your friends. I don't know if you've ever had a friend who just constantly dumps about just everything all the time. It's kind of hard to be around, especially if you're working to be in a better place. So just trying to separate yourself, from the negativity, but it also filters what your brain searches for. So if we're constantly telling ourselves negative things, if we're constantly telling ourselves that, I'm never going to have this, I'm never going to have that, your brain is a filtering machine, and it says, okay, I believe you. And it starts to look for whatever you're telling it. So we've got this element of it's making you feel bad. It's looking for things to match it in the environment, but it's also manifesting. So if you believe in frequency and you believe in energy, which I hope you do if you're listening to me, if you believe of any of that stuff, you're drawing in other things that are like that, other energies that are like that, other people that are like that. You are manifesting all the things you're worried about. So I don't believe that we control fate. Like I think there's an element of fate to everything, but more things are choice and creation than they are fate, and that's just something that I believe personally. But again, I believe you were made for an amazing life, but I also think you have to remind yourself that an amazing life may or may not come exactly how you think it should. You are operating on limited information. Most of the information is either what you've seen, what you have heard, what you know, but the options are not limited to what you already know. And that's the most important piece to remember. The world is abundant. Options are endless. There are so many things that can happen. There are so many people to meet. There are so many jobs out there that are being created every single day, every moment of every single day. There are so many people who are waiting to meet you and waiting to love on you and waiting to show you what you're capable of. So when we get stuck in resistance, what we're really saying is, I've refused to believe there is better for me. A couple things are going to pull you out of this resistance, and I think these are really important, so jot them down. Getting quiet. And if your brain is super busy right now, you're just going to roll your eyes at me. But if you can get quiet, throw on that music, throw on a good affirmation riff. I have one on a YouTube that I barely use that I'll post it in my group. When you're listening to somebody else spew positivity, I choose greatness. I choose love. I choose to receive. I choose to receive the fun and the love and the connection. And I choose to receive the impact and the influence. And I choose to receive. And what it does is it just overrides your ability to go down the rabbit hole. Because if we think about thoughts as like a snowball, they gain momentum. If we think about manifestation, like thoughts attract like thoughts. So as we're snowballing down the hill of negative thinking, we're just gathering more feeling, more depth, more momentum, more ability to visualize how bad this is going to go. We can be perfectly fine. We could be sitting in the bathtub having a nice bath and still be snowballing internally and still be in an anxious loop or still have a panic attack. Now, remind yourself that in this present moment, if you look around, see what you see, smell what you smell, touch what you touch, whatever that is, if you bring yourself into the present moment, you're probably fine. You're probably not in a situation where you're getting tortured by the FBI, right? You're probably not in the middle of a major upheaval in this very moment. You're probably thinking about the major upheaval that could potentially, possibly, maybe come, but you're ruining your time right now. You're ruining your joy. You're ruining your happiness. You're ruining your connections. You're ruining your ability to be present with the people and the things that are actually important to you. So when we release resistance, it's about choosing different thoughts. So whether that's listening to affirmation or I love, love, love. If you know me, you know that I love writing out my affirmations in the morning. How do I want my day to go? How do I want to feel? How do I want my relationships to go? How do I want to feel in my relationships? How much fun do I want to have? And I really go down through all of the pieces of my life. And I don't do everything every day, but especially if there's something that I know I'm going down the rabbit hole on. Like right now I'm having kind of a travel conundrum because of everything being closed, but there's something that I need to do. And I'm trying to work on on that. And I realized I started saying, okay, well, if this is closed, then I'm going to have to do this. And if this is closed, I'm going to rewrite that. I don't need to, I'm resisting the hell out of this opportunity. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to decide that it's going to go easy for me. And I'm going to decide I don't have to see how that's going to happen. Do you understand? I do not have to see how it's going to happen to start to believe that it could go easier. To start believe that opportunities could open up, or flights could open up, or somebody might come and help me out in some certain way. So I don't have to believe this is hard and challenging. By building that up, I'm not only creating stress for myself now and it's a month away, but I'm also blocking the opportunity for ease to come in. That's what resistance is. You're blocking yourself. You're blocking yourself from the joy. You're blocking yourself from the connections. You're blocking yourself from the ease of it. You were made for an amazing life. You weren't made to struggle. And if you're struggling, you really have to think, how am I thinking about things? Do I think that people should treat me in a specific way, or do I expect them to treat me poorly? Do I expect that things will work out for me? And if I don't get this job, then another one's on its way and it's going to be even better? Do you see how that changes the emotion of everything? That's releasing resistance. Releasing resistance isn't about quote unquote letting it go. I hate that word. I hate it. I hate that phrase. It's so stupid. You don't let it go. Every time you let it go, every time you try not to think about something, you're going to think about it more. So we're not doing that, but we are going to let it be. We're going to let it be and shape and form in whatever way. And the thing is it really comes with a level of patience, because you might not see it forming in the way it's forming until it's formed. And that could be a couple weeks or a month or 2 months. You don't need to see the process, and you don't need to decide that whatever place you are in the process is the final stopping point. That's bullshit, and you know it. So your job is to give permission for potential. Give yourself permission to think that, even if I don't see the other possibilities here, there's got to be. Crazier things have happened. I always like to look up when I'm having one of those days where I'm like, I feel like this is the only way and I just lost it all. Your job is to go find examples where that wasn't the case. Examples of people in your situation who got a break. And what you'll notice about these stories, it's a freaking moment. I always think of the story of Sylvester Stallone and Rocky. And I don't know if you know much about that, but he went everywhere. He tried everything. And some people think this is a story of persistence, but I think it's a story of a moment changing. And I think there is a level of persistence there. So you do have to have that kind of mindset sometimes. But I think there's also that idea that everything can change in a moment. That man sold his dog because he couldn't afford to feed it. He couldn't afford to live. I think he pawned his girlfriend's engagement ring. He was at rock bottom. And if you're at rock bottom right now and you're like, how do I find a way out? You can meet somebody at the supermarket tomorrow who might really just like that you let them in front of you and might give you their card, and it might lead to something. You don't know how the universe is programmed, but by thinking that it's not programmed in your favor ever, you're setting yourself up to be closed off to opportunities. So your job is to remain open. Your job is to start to look for abundance. Your job is to stop the flow of negative thinking by going and doing something, by working out, by going for a walk, by putting on some feel-good music, by listening to, that 432 hertz. Your job is to do freaking anything else to slow the momentum. And some people are like, oh, well, distraction's not healthy, but I think in this case it is. If you slow the momentum down, then you can think about it in a healthy way. If you stop putting the brain under stress, it has ability to access more spaces. You continuously thinking about it isn't doing that for you. I'm a huge fan of Stephen Furtick, Elevation Church. That's my local church, but he's also kind of a big deal. But he said on his I was listening to a podcast episode because church is still closed, and he said sometimes what we think is better is based on a point of reference that has no grounding in reality. And I'm obsessed with that idea that sometimes what we think is better is based on a point of reference that has no grounding in reality. Sometimes we think something is going to be better just because we're trying to get out of something else. So again, part of that is really thinking about how you're thinking about it. How am I thinking about it? Is it helping me? Is it manifesting things for me? Is it giving me anxiety? Do I need to go do something to get rid of the anxiety? Do I need to write out different affirmations? Do I need to listen to other people say affirmations just to try to override my brain and my thinking right now? Do I need to sage my house and clear the energy so I stop perpetuating my thoughts with my energy? Because that's a thing. But the other thing I think that is most important is that I find when I'm getting really distracted by external, whether it's a purchase I've made, whether it's something going on with the kids in school. Oh my Lord, that's been a easy external distraction, easy external pull. All of these things that you are worried about are usually outside of yourself. Not that they don't impact you, but a lot of times we spend a lot of energy externally. And your job in those moments is to come back internal, is to come back. How am I going to soothe this within myself? How do I want to make it easier in my day to go through my day where I feel more confident and I feel more uh, happy and at ease and calm? What am I going to do for myself today? How am I going to care for myself today? What kind of day do I want to have? Because again, our brain is automated. And once we get on those automated cycles, it's so easy to perpetuate them. It's so easy to continue them. But if we can take 5 seconds, slow it down, come back within, take a couple big deep breaths, because breathing always centers you. It always brings you back to yourself. It always makes you present. So if I can bring myself back to myself, then I can do something. So the easiest way through is in. Come back inward, not to think, not to obsess, but to just say, okay, put your hand on your heart, breathe in for a second. Just ask yourself, what do I need? Last night, the girls wanted a friend to stay the night, and I just knew I needed a self-care night. I knew I needed a bubble bath, and I knew I needed to read a good book. And so as much as it's like the last week of school and I felt a lot of, guilt adding up, I could either feed into that guilt and let it happen and be miserable because I know I made a choice that wasn't authentic to myself, or I could choose to take care of myself in the way that I knew I needed. So I said, okay, well, what about Friday? Friday is a better day for me. A lot of times when we're checking in with ourselves, it gives us permission to voice our opinions. So coming back, if we can full circle back to that original post that I made in that group that says you can't mess up anything that's meant for you. When we're releasing resistance, what we're doing is we're diving into authenticity. We're acting and speaking in the ways and telling our truth in the ways that feel right for us, knowing that if this thing is meant for us, it's not going anywhere. And if this thing is meant for us, I know this is a lot. This has to do a lot in relationships. I see this a lot in relationships where people are afraid to say what they want out of the relationship because they're afraid that the person will just leave. They're afraid to say what they're thinking or feeling and afraid to be honest. But the longer you do that, the longer you hold back, the longer you're separating yourself from true and full happiness. You're separating yourself from the possibility of being with somebody who does want those things with you. You're separating yourself from the possibility of them really understanding you and stepping up. There are so many opportunities. We're so scared of losing things sometimes that we just grip them and we shrink in the process. But the reality is if it is meant for you, if it is right for you in your alignment with where you're at in your life, and again, this isn't magical, this isn't faith, this is just matching of I'm being honest with myself, I'm being honest with you about what I want and where I'm at, and I deserve that. And if you're the right fit for me, whether it's the job, whether it's you need a raise, whatever it is, practice speaking openly and honestly. Practice speaking your truth, because the things that aren't meant for you will fade away. And sometimes they fade away and they come back a better version. It's like a transformer, Sometimes when we speak our truth to people, they'll say, okay, I'm not ready in this moment. And then they need to take a break and come back to it. And maybe they're better when they come back. Maybe, the job says, oh, well, we can't pay you that. And then they don't find anybody who's better than you. So they have to. They come back in a couple weeks and offer you a better pay, whatever that is. Sometimes those things can happen. So if it is meant for you, it'll circle back around. There's no lack in possibility. And the minute you connect with that, then all of these decisions, all of these things that feel really bold to you, you'll be able to flow with. You'll be able to let it be because you won't be putting a ton of resistance in it, around it, or after it. So one of the comments yesterday was that, okay, well, I, spoke my truth and now I'm dealing with the impact of it. And sometimes I, don't know if I can make it through the impact of it. But again, I'd ask you, what meaning did you assign to that? What did you decide that had to say about you? What did you decide that had to say about your future, that no one else can fill that role but that one person? That's not true. There's so many people in the world. No job is going to be as good as this one. I actually had a good conversation. My dad came to visit like last week. And he came to visit and he was like, "Oh, do you miss anything about New York?" And I said, "It's funny because I do love summers in New York. And I love waterfall adventures and I love and there were things I thought, okay, I'll never find this anywhere else. This is very exclusive to this area." But the reality is sometimes there's that and better. There's that and more. And when we start to get in a mindset that there is that and more, it changes things. It gives us more freedom to wiggle around. It gives us more freedom to let things go or let things be easier. It gives us more ability to speak in our truth. Know that there is the opportunity to trick your mind into understanding that what is in front of you does not have to be it. And what you've decided is better does not actually mean that it is better. And so with this, then we can take the opportunity to come back to ourselves. Do trust the universe. I believe the universe is on your side. I believe that it helps you out. I believe that it does good things for you. But also to give permission for possibility, to give opportunity for abundance, to create space that you're not just absorbing in your negative thinking, that you're not creating resistance in your life. So we're going to release the resistance by coming back to ourselves, whether that's taking a night and just writing down the things you want, getting clear about what you want, getting clear about what you'd like, writing it down and giving yourself permission to be honest. Sometimes we're afraid to be honest. I've said this in 90% of my episodes, but sometimes we're afraid to be honest because we know we're going to have to make a decision at some point if we're honest with ourselves. But the thing is that once you get honest, it starts to create the decision for you. Once you're telling the truth to yourself, the universe starts responding accordingly. And it makes it easier. And that's the other thing too, is sometimes we're afraid to get honest because we think it's going to be hard. Use the mantra, it's easier than I ever thought it could be. Easier than I ever thought it could be. And again, what are you looking for? That's what you're looking for. Things to be easy. What are you attracting when you're saying that? You're attracting things. How does that feel when you say it? That's all we're really looking for. Is if you don't believe in energy and you don't believe in anything else, we understand that when you think something, it makes you feel a specific way. And if anything else from my podcast that you will learn or not learn, it's that when you think positively or you find optimism or possibility or you open yourself up to better or different thinking, it creates different results in your life. It feels better throughout the day. So if anything, we're just getting you through the day a little easier, which I think we all could use. So I hope this is helpful. Make sure you like, make sure you share, make sure you subscribe. Catch me over on www.nicholeeaton.com. It's NicholeEaton. Or you can join my Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/rockyoursoulclarity. We would love to have you. We powwow in there just about every day. All right, guys, keep it real. Thank you so much for listening to the Rock Your Soul book and podcast. Take a moment to book a one-on-one personalized soul therapy session with me or catch a live event by visiting www.nicholeeaton.com or follow me on Instagram at nicholeeaton.xo. Thank you.